In this video, I'm going to configure a PCI device for pass-through, specifically a USB 3.0 device. In this case, it's a 2-port USB 2.0 device from Newegg that I'm looking at here. I've actually owned it for well over a year. I'm not saying it's the best one, it's just the simplest to demonstrate pass-through on. Okay, next we go to the ESX host, click Configuration, click Advanced Settings. It says no device is currently enabled for pass-through. Click on Configure Pass-through. And if we look through this list here, you'll notice a couple things. One is it's not obvious that it can be resized. A little easier to read. Let's just go ahead and make it bigger. Okay. Next, all the Sandy Bridge and Cougar Point stuff, I did not have luck isolating USB 2.0 or 3.0 on the motherboard for VMDirectPath, so I kind of gave that up. RAID adapters you can do. They work fine. But this specific example, I want to use USB 3.0. It's based on the NEC chipset, I happen to know, so it was easy for me to spot in this case. So when I turn the checkbox on, it gives me a little warning. The dependent device will also be marked. So what it's saying is this Cougar Point PCI slot and the host controller are going to be passed through to the VM. You can't click these, they're gray. These you can, they're black. Just scrolling down, showing you there's really nothing else that would be a candidate here. Gigabit Ethernet. In fact, the USB 3.0 that's built into the Z68 motherboard chipset doesn't even show. Okay. Vendor ID, we could Google around a bit and confirm that all this matches the StarTech, but I happen to know it works. I've tested it. We click OK. It now warns us with a little indicator here that we need to recycle ESX before this will take effect. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. In my case, I have no virtual machines running, so reboot, and there it goes. All right, we'll let this finish rebooting. It'll take a few minutes for ESX to come back up again. In my case, I'm booting ESX off a USB key, USB 2.0 on the motherboard. Nothing to do with this USB 3.0 compatible PCI adapter I've installed. Just want to point that out. Okay, I'll resume the video once it's finished rebooting. Okay, it's a minute later. You'll see I'm on ESX 5.0. All right, so it's finished booting, so we should be able to install the client, or connect the client. So I'm going to go ahead and get back to where we were, just to show that it worked. So if we look at advanced settings, everything's fine. There's no more icon indicating we need a reboot. It's just done in green. All right, that's that. What else is needed? Well, here's the thing. We need to assign this PCI device to one of the virtual machines. We'll go with Windows 7. And let's open up the console. All right, now this virtual machine is running, but its settings here are just at defaults. There's no PCI adapter pass through. I'll show you that in a moment, how we do that. So let's go ahead and shut that virtual machine down. But just so you have a peek here at how Device Manager looks, before we shut it down, you'll see there's no USB 3.0 controllers seen, naturally. Nothing. Here at the bottom you would see USB 3, USB controllers. All right, so let's go ahead and shut that down. All right, once it's finished shutting down, we're able to change settings of the virtual machine. There, it's done. You can see the stop showed. All right, edit settings, add PCI device. There you go. If you look at the drop-down menu, there's only one option. It gives you a warning that you will not be able to do vMotion, and you won't be able to do snapshots. So these are important things to keep in mind. I need to check this one thing here. I think when the machine is powered off, you can still do a snapshot. I'll have to double check that. Anyhow, if you want USB 3.0 speeds to pass through to Windows, this is how you got to do it. On Linux, there's native USB 3 support. But on Windows for now, and ESXi, this is what you do. It gives you a confirmation screen. You click Finish. And now this PCI device is passed through to the virtual machine. So when we power it on, we should see the Windows Device Manager find this new device. And we'll need the driver for it, of course. All right, so we'll let the hard drive settle down here. And because there's no native support, we should get some errors here in Device Manager. Okay, whoops. There we go, USB controller. If we look at the properties of that USB controller, hardware ID, we can look this up and we'll see that's the NEC that we did. 0194. Or we can just look it up ourselves over here. One nine four 0194. So that is the device, just we need a driver for it. Okay? This is NEC driver 2.1.19.0, which I've tested and works well. So whether I'm in a virtual machine or Windows 7 installed natively, not inside of VMware, doesn't matter. I use the same driver for my speed test I did. So I have an apples-to-apples comparison of virtualized versus bare metal install on Windows 7 and the performance of this USB adapter. So just ran setup. Doesn't ask anything, it just runs. There we go. That's a good sign. So we look in here, the errors went away. Simple. If we look at the settings, we'll see the driver 2.1.19. So now what? Well, this host control utility, I've had trouble if I leave power management on, so I turn that off. So that's it. That's the procedure for installing USB 3.0 support or any VMDirectPath or passthru PCI adapters that VMware supports. That basic procedure I just demonstrated is the same regardless. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and insert a USB 3.0 USB key. Files on a USB drive. So the point is there's some other settings in here that could confuse you, and I know they confused me. For instance, we don't need to add USB device or USB controller. We literally just pass through my USB 3.0 card. That's the way you get success for this particular device type. Had it been a RAID controller, it'd be a little less confusing because you really wouldn't expect to be messing with those two. But because it was USB 3.0, at first I had some issues understanding that really all I wanted to do was pass through the PCI device, which makes sense in hindsight. So hopefully you found this video useful. Thank you for watching.